Good evening, Tony. Good to see you.
Good evening, Matt.
What kind of troubles had James been struggling with?
James had had a sort of psychotic illness for perhaps 5 or 6 years before he died. We're not exactly sure why that started, but he'd been been helped by an alternative healer in Somerset, and in the 4 weeks before he died, he lost his grandmother, to whom he was very close, and he started to use legal high drugs, which he bought from the internet. We're not sure exactly whether he was high on them on the day that he died, but certainly they'd have stopped him from sleeping, and he'd got himself into a state where the psychosis became sort of more prevalent.
But people who knew him obviously knew that, you know, he would exhibit this kind of behaviour.
Yes.
And the like. Having said that, on the day that he died, he was seen sort of running in and out of traffic near where he lived, and he was picked up by police.
Yes.
And what happened then?
Well, he was picked up by police, and he was restrained in the end by 4 police officers and 3 members of the public, and then he was kind of put into the back of a van and restrained, driven on a 40-minute journey to Yeovil police station. At one end he was compos mentis, and at the other end he was in a collapsed state.
Now look, I know we don't want to get into some sort of a blame game here, and you've talked at length about this in the past, but learning from James's death, what kind of things do you think could be done better in the future?
Yeah, number one, de-escalation. Police officers need to be able to recognise somebody in mental health crisis. James was not a violent person. He had never exhibited any violence, and police officers locally knew that. So talking somebody down and actually avoiding restraining them in the first place is key. Second, if you then have to restrain, or whether you don't have to restrain, somebody in a mental health crisis should never be transported in anything other than an ambulance, in my opinion.
I mean, it's difficult for professionals even to recognise the kind of symptoms that James was exhibiting. But how do you feel about MPs now finally pushing for these changes?
I think it's good. I mean, the Home Affairs Select Committee asked Deborah Coles, co-chair of Inquest, Barbara Montgomery, James's mum, and I to give evidence, and they've referenced that evidence in the report, and that's good. I feel that the Select Committee has come up with a lot of suggestions which are sensible. The not using police cells for Section 136 is not new, but that is certainly something that we would agree with. And now what we'd like to see is all of those changes be implemented.
And people who do want things to change are also acutely aware at this point in time that there's a general election just round the corner. How hopeful are you that these recommendations will be followed?
I'm a bit of a novice in that area. I was impressed by the committee and how well informed they were. I understand that it's a committee that does have teeth, and perhaps it is being a cross-party one. It may be that they push. What I don't want to hear is that there's a lack of money, because actually doing things right never costs more than doing things wrong.
Tony, many thanks for coming.
My pleasure.